What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the OnePlus Nord N300 5G. Now, as always, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the A54 5G, we're getting a 6.4-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 403, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. With the OnePlus Nord N300 5G, we're getting a 6.56-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So in general, for what they are, both phones have pretty good displays, but between the two, I would say the A54 5G has the overall advantage here, despite the OnePlus being a tiny bit larger at 6.56 inches versus again 6.4 with the Samsung. The A54 5G has significantly better image quality with the 1080p resolution versus a honestly kind of disappointing 720p with the OnePlus. The Samsung has a significantly sharper image, and with the Super AMOLED versus an IPS LCD display, the colors are a bit more rich and vibrant, the display is a little bit brighter, and the viewing angles are significantly better. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, the A54 5G will be quite a bit easier to see. In addition to this, with the 120Hz refresh rate versus 90 with the OnePlus. Don't get me wrong, a 90Hz refresh rate is pretty good too, but with the A54 5G, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, and the phone is overall going to feel a bit more premium to use. So in general, on one hand, the OnePlus Nord N300 5G does have a pretty decent display, and if you're really not going to be on your phone too much, maybe you're watching the occasional video every now and then, or browsing the web, or using social media, or really any number of different things, but again, you're really just not going to be on your phone too much, then in that case, the OnePlus will be perfectly fine. But if you are going to be using your phone a bit more, especially consuming lots of content and just generally doing stuff where the image quality is important, I would definitely go with the A54 5G. Now for storage, with the A54 5G, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the OnePlus Nord N300 5G, we're getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. So clearly here, the A54 5G has a huge advantage, having double the storage of the OnePlus. So in general, if storage is more important to you, you will want to go with the A54 5G. But on the other hand, with the OnePlus, 64GB, while not being the best, is definitely not terrible. And if you're maybe a bit more of a light, casual user, and you're not doing a ton with your phone or downloading a bunch of apps and stuff like that, the storage you get with this phone will at least get the job done. And really, if all you have on your phone is a bunch of photos and videos and music and stuff like that, again, this phone does support microSD card expansion, so it shouldn't really be a big deal. But of course, if storage is more important to you, then again, the A54 5G does have the advantage here. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners too. With the A54 5G, it's in the display. And with the OnePlus, it's right here on the power key. But starting with the A54 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the OnePlus. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. No issues at all. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too. So if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here with the A54 5G. Up front, we got a 32MP selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50MP main camera, a 12MP ultra wide camera, and a 5MP macro camera. For video, this phone can record 4K videos in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely great to see there. And then with the OnePlus, up front, we got a 16MP selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a dual camera setup with a 48MP main camera and a 2MP depth sensing camera. And then for video, this phone does max out at 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so unfortunately no 4K here. So in general, when it comes to features, as you can probably tell, the A54 5G definitely has the advantage here, having both an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, whereas unfortunately with the OnePlus, the camera setup here is pretty featureless. And in case you're wondering, with the A54 5G, despite not having a dedicated depth sensing camera, it's really just built into the main camera, so portrait mode still works perfectly fine. All this being said though, despite the OnePlus having kind of a disadvantage when it comes to features, when it comes to photo quality, it is a bit of a different story. To give you an idea of what these cameras can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the A54 5G. So overall, definitely good quality here. And for the average user, I feel like no matter what you're doing with your camera, whether you're taking Instagram photos or sending things to friends and family, or maybe even taking vacation photos for your own memory. Maybe you're using your camera for work, maybe you're like a real estate agent or something and you need to get pictures of a home. Really, again, no matter what you're doing with this camera, despite not being the absolute top of the line and nowhere near the level of something like a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, for example, I still do think the camera here is great, and for what it is, it's pretty much as good as you could possibly expect. So if you are looking for a relatively affordable 5G phone that has a great camera, you're definitely not going to go wrong with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. And then here's some pictures taken with the OnePlus Nord N300 5G. And overall, it's kind of debatable which one is actually better between the two, so I'll let you decide that for yourself. But in general, I feel like for what it is, considering with this phone, full price to full price, this device is like half the price of the A54 5G. So you would think the A54 5G would be like on a completely different level, but honestly with the OnePlus, I feel like the photo quality is actually pretty comparable. So in general, if you're really not that concerned about using a macro camera, taking 4K videos, or having that wider angle with an ultra wide camera, I feel like between the two, with the OnePlus, you're probably gonna get a pretty similar camera experience. So in general, basically same kind of thing, no matter what you're doing with your camera, as long as you're not really that concerned about the extra features like an ultra wide camera and a macro camera. For the average user, the camera we get with the OnePlus will be perfectly fine too. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Exynos 1380 processor. With the OnePlus Nord N300 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 810. Now on one hand, for what it is, I do think the N300 5G actually has pretty good performance, and for the average user, for more casual activities like web browsing, social media, watching videos, stuff like that, this phone will get the job done just fine. That being said though, between the two, the A54 5G is a bit faster. Not really by a ton, it's not like comparing the OnePlus to a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or something, but at the same time, the difference is still definitely there. So if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, between the two, I would go with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Now I ran a benchmark test on each phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So again, as you can see here between the two, the A54 5G does have an advantage, but again, in my experience, the OnePlus is still really not slow. It's just not quite as fast. So in general, again, for more basic activities and more infrequent use, the OnePlus will still get the job done just fine. But again, if you want the faster phone between the two, then obviously the A54 5G will be a better choice. Now for the batteries, both phones have 5000 mAh batteries, with the A54 5G supporting 25W fast charging and the OnePlus supporting 33. So honestly, there's not really a significant difference here. If you're really that concerned about fast charging, then the OnePlus will have a small advantage, but in my experience, if you have a good fast charger, the charging speed with the A54 5G is really not bad either. But yeah, keep in mind, to actually use the 25W and 33W fast charging, you will actually need a good enough fast charger, so 25 and 33. And keep in mind, the OnePlus does come with one, whereas unfortunately with the A54 5G, you don't even get a wall adapter, so yeah, definitely keep this in mind. But aside from the charging, the batteries are pretty much the same. 5000 mAh batteries are great batteries though, so if you're looking for a phone that has really good battery life and longevity, you won't go wrong with either phone here. For the software, both phones here have Android 13, but also keep in mind with the OnePlus, this phone actually originally had Android 12 and recently updated to Android 13, whereas with the Samsung, this phone came with Android 13, and with Samsung software support, it will also be getting Android 14, 15, 16, and 17, so definitely plenty of updates here. And now with the OnePlus, I'm not really sure what kind of updates it's going to get in the future. There is a possibility it might end up getting Android 14. I mean, OnePlus's software support has been getting better recently, but even then, if you really want to be able to count on updates, I would definitely go with the Samsung. But if you're really only concerned about having Android 13 and otherwise long-term software support isn't really that important to you, then the OnePlus will be perfectly fine too. When it comes to other features, both phones do have NFC, so definitely great to see there. And also keep in mind with the A54 5G, unfortunately, this phone does not have a headphone jack, whereas the OnePlus does. Now, I seriously doubt this is going to be really a reason to get one phone over the other, but it is still kind of disappointing that with the A54 5G, and honestly a lot of Samsung Galaxy A series phones for that matter, we are starting to see the headphone jacks kind of disappear. Because even though I kind of get it, lots of people out there still have normal pairs of wired headphones they want to use. So just keep in mind, with the OnePlus, you can use them without an adapter, but with the A54 5G, you will need one. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in pretty much every way where there's a significant difference, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G is the better device here. The display quality is quite a bit better, so if you are doing stuff like watching videos, definitely keep this in mind. It also has double the storage, a lot more camera features, noticeably faster performance, and better software support too. So in general, if you're really trying to maximize the features and value you're getting, then I would definitely go with the Samsung. That being said though, despite the A54 5G technically being the better device here, it might not be the best choice for everyone. Because remember, despite not being quite as good when it comes to image quality, storage, performance, and stuff like camera features, the OnePlus still has a pretty decent display. And even though it's still only a 720p display, if you're just watching the occasional video every now and then, or maybe browsing the web or something simple like that, you probably won't really be bothered that much by it. 64GB is also a kind of okay amount of storage, especially for light users. Despite not having many camera features, the photo quality is still really good too. The performance is also decent, and it also has a really large battery too. In fact, the same size for that matter. It also has Android 13 and NFC too. So in general, if you're really just looking for an affordable 5G phone for more basic activities, then chances are the OnePlus might be all you really need. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the OnePlus Nord N300 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.